All right, today I will educate you young Americans on why participating in the U.S. elections benefits us as individuals as well as the nation as a whole. So I know you guys are probably wondering, but I'm sorry, I bet you guys are probably asking yourselves, how do I vote? Well, if you guys are 18 and U.S. citizens, you can all partake in this wonderful event. Let's see. So the history of voting isn't as beautiful as that, because in 1776, only white property owners that were 21 and rich could vote. Now, black people didn't like that because, where's their right to vote? So in 1869 through 1870, the 15th Amendment was put into place where you could not be discriminated by race, color, or previous condition of servitude in order to vote. And there's still one thing missing here. All the ladies, where's your right to vote? So in 1919, which is kind of funny because the 19th Amendment is the gateway to women getting the vote, and they could not be discriminated by sex. However, it's still 21 at this point in 1919. So in 1971, when all these young 18-year-olds were going to Vietnam and dying, people were like, why can't we vote, but we can die for our country? So the 25th Amendment was put into place where now instead of 21 years old, you could be 18 and vote, which is awesome. So there's a couple ways that it can benefit as a whole and then as an individual. The perks of voting as an individual are you get to express your opinions, and if, there's some certain event that you really want to express and try to make a difference in, you can do so. And then according to provote.org, voting can connect you socially with friends and neighbors and makes you more active because you know more people. And also that same website, it actually provides a better quality of life and longevity, which can extend your life. And as a nation, you get to choose the leaders of a nation as a whole. It's like President Obama. People chose Obama, and if you think that's right, that's awesome because you went and voted. And as a nation also, the person that gets put into Congress or people and the presidency also determines taxes. So when you vote as a nation, your taxes could be to your benefit. Like you can vote where you want to put certain things. And another question probably get asked a lot is, where does your vote go? Every state has an individual pool where, for instance, Alaska has 3 votes for the state, whereas California has 54 because it's a bigger state. And depending on how many people you have in that state, you have a certain amount of state electors who represent you for the voting. And right here, actually, I think I can skip past this, but I'll just do a rundown here. The 15th Amendment right here, that's where the Africans got the right to vote and you could not be discriminated by race. As the 19th one is can't be discriminated by sex. And the 25th right here is, 26th is that 18-year-old instead of 21-year-old. And in conclusion, I hope I educate you guys on elections and how they are a benefit to you and as a nation as a whole.
So Sandra, what did you think?
I liked your speech, but I felt that it was a short speech. And at the beginning, I didn't like know your thesis or what were your topic, your main points. But I like that you were talking to us and you were explaining why it's important to vote and where does your vote goes. One thing that I didn't like too much was your visuals, your visual aids, because I didn't think it was very effective. But I like your type.
All right, good deal. Trevor, there's no attention device in the speech. You start with the purpose statement, which was pretty clear. That's okay, so we know what that was. I think you need to give us a little bit more justification and context for listening to the argument. We do have an election that's going on. It seems like there ought to be some reference to that. I think you missed a trick by not even referring to the debate last night. That it gives you a nice topical reference to the fact that we're going to be voting in a year from now again for president. There's no preview of the supporting material, so structurally it's going to be a little bit tough to follow. You start off with a review of some factual data about the amendments to the Constitution and some historical context that apply to voting issues. And I think that could be developed a little bit more from a historical perspective. Maybe add a story or two in there to make it interesting about, the context, for instance, of voting for African Americans, or the context for voting for women and people who've fought for those rights and why it was considered important at those times. There's not really any discussion of that. You just kind of reviewed the event. Check off 15th Amendment, check off 19th Amendment, check off 27th Amendment or 26th Amendment, and that's kind of where we go. You got a little bit more into it. I mean, you had kind of passing references to those things, but they basically were not much more than transitions on those points. On the supporting points, I did think you had a little bit of information talking about the value of voting as a participant in the community. I think that could be developed a little bit more. It felt a little thin, sometimes very conclusionary in the quotes that you had, but it sounds interesting, and it sounded like it would be something that you could spend more time on. Organizationally, I don't know that once we get past just what the subject is, that there is much of a plan. At one point you start talking about the Electoral College, and I think you maybe give it about 20 seconds and then you move on to another issue, and so it doesn't really feel like there's a path that you're following that's going to get us to the end objective. It feels very random about the information that's being presented. Sandra's probably right about the visual. It's not as effective as it ought to be. There are a couple of things that you do. First of all, you got 26 items listed up there. It's the 26 amendments that you've got, and the 3 or 4 that you were mentioning ought to be highlighted. They ought to be made bigger, or they could pop out at some point, or you could have them color highlighted something, because you do mention them at the beginning of the speech, and then at the end of the speech you come back and you start pointing them out at that particular point. But that's all it is. It's like wallpaper in the speech. It doesn't add anything to the understanding of the subject. Now, you did make reference to time periods when those things were done. That could have been a chronology. You could have structured your speech around those 3 amendments, used it as a chronological order for the speech, and talked about individual points on each of those things. I want to talk about what I want to do is I want to review for you the 3 key constitutional issues that deal with voting, or something along those lines, and then you could do it amendment by amendment or year by year, and then I think it would have a little bit more structure. It doesn't add a lot of material to the presentation. You've got a natural, relaxed way of speaking to us, which is great. I'm glad that you feel confident about talking in front of an audience. Those are good characteristics to have, but you have to have something to say, and you have to try and make it a little bit interesting. Because despite the fact that you have a sparkling personality, that's always not enough to get by on. All right, thank you.